By 5:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm sure we're going to have an answer about what the Pentagon is receiving as an official response from Anthropic. It appears Skynet could possibly be today, or we may find out that American businesses have a better understanding and more backbone than the American government has about artificial intelligence. Today, we're going to be talking about the 501 deadline, 5:01 p.m. deadline for Anthropic that the Pentagon gave to them to remove the AI safety red lines or safeguards to allow for what the Pentagon is trying to do. So, specifically, the Pentagon has said as red line number one, I'm sorry, Anthropic has said as red line number one, they will not be enabling mass surveillance. Mass surveillance of Americans. And then red line number two is that they will not be providing autonomous or making autonomous weapons without human control and oversight. So the Pentagon's ultimatum is that they are demanding complicit behavior, or they're going to cancel the $200 million contract and blacklist the Anthropic team from any defense work and potentially invoke the Defense Production Act to force their hand, which is it's kind of ironic, right? Like provoking Anthropic by saying they're going to pull that particular act in, and it just enables it says like it's valuable, it's needed, right? By saying that they're going to force Anthropic to play ball for that particular act, the Defense Act. But then at the same time, they're going to bar them from any work in the government, right? As a clear punishment for the American business standing up and saying that they have a particular code of ethics or policies that they're not willing to break because the tool is that dangerous. And so Dario Amodei is definitely kind of leading the charge there for his company. Here's the contradiction that nobody can really explain, right? So threat number one is that um, they're planning to label Anthropic a security risk. They're too dangerous to work with, is what they're saying. They're also pointing out that they're going to invoke the Defense Act. This is what I just obviously covered, but you cannot be both a threat and a necessity, right? I think this is clear that you need to pick one. Dario Amodei was quoted as saying, these two threats are inherently contradictory, right? They, one, are being labeled as a security risk and then having to defend themselves as why they're essential. By the way, they're the only model that's cleared to work under classified information currently because of the seriousness that Anthropic has clearly put into producing the quality of the models. And so this is leading to more than just a political story. I mean, this is truly an engineering story from the heart because um, the spectacle is that the media is framing this as if Hegseth is against Amode personally, right? Like woke AI has been quoted several times, or national versus national security initiatives. But you know, and then you have like Elon Musk jumping in on X here recently, calling Anthropic or saying that they hate Western civilization, which just again a lot of contradictions here. I mean, maybe some of this stuff would stick if there was the controversy in the background of the company, but Anthropic is an American company. Like they are also the best model in the world currently with Opus 4.6, and labeling them as hating Western civilization just feels like a real big reach here, right? So the substance is Anthropic's are the red lines technically justified, right? So my answer is yeah, they are. They're certainly justified, and I have 8 documented cases I'm going to go over here shortly for you to give you evidence that you can take and have these conversations with and feel enabled as well, right? So we're going to have a danger index in general that I think is going to be kind of important for us to discuss. So we'll kind of keep that in mind as we go. And I can see that the screen is a little, so I do apologize. Let me fix that. So you can see the index here. Okay. So, the danger index that you get a chance to see is like, I'm going to measure this with like high stakes plus time pressure, war rooms, police investigations, crisis response. And then I'm going to talk about weak contestability. So, hard to appeal, how it's hard to audit, proprietary logic that's included, and then proxy targeting, cost, past arrest, prior report, standing in for the truth, like how these things affect the overall danger of AI catastrophes that are clearly going to happen because we have not been able to test out or at least train out some of these issues in the models today, right? And so there's an automation bias as well too, where humans default to the system under load, right? Like in general. And so danger equals stakes times scale times irreversibility times the opacity, mass surveillance, and autonomous weapons max out all four of these categories, right? Um, AI assisted targeting war in general. So AI systems used to generate and prioritize targeting lists in active combat zones. And there are accounts that describe large scale target production where human approval becomes perfunctory under operational pressure. So the failure modes that can be described in general are, you have high stake decision support becomes de facto decision making. Speed becomes policy, right? Because life is life. Like this is life be life, right? So the stakes are 100%, right? The scale is 100%, irreversibility is 100%, opacity is 100%. This is the exact use case Anthropic is drawing the line on, right? Like every single one of these things is just so complex with the reason, the intention, and the specific use case that why don't we just say no overall and just not use it because it makes us scared to understand what could happen if we can't control it. Okay, so case 2 of 8, there is wrongful arrest that can happen from facial recognition. Robert Williams was wrongfully arrested by Detroit police when they relied upon facial recognition as a match. That was a landmark settlement case that happened. You can look it up. But the failure mode in general there was probabilistic match. It treated identity like, I'm sorry, there was the probabilistic match was treated like identity, and then it was laundered into evidence, right? This hits hardest on demographics with higher error rates. Every single model that's currently out there has failed in many of these error rate catching issues, especially with black and brown communities, right? So black and brown communities are susceptible to this. Women are susceptible to a lot of these particular issues. And so if you don't have governance, if you don't have transparency, these are the things Anthropic is talking about, right? It's not just about the model underneath it. It's about the organization, the people, the policies, the things that are running with the technology. Right. Okay. So you can kind of see how those error rates play out in general. Then we can talk about predictive child welfare screening. This is case 3, right? The Allegheny family screening tool drew civil rights complaints and DOJ scrutiny when DOJ scrutiny for potential discrimination via data proxies for disability and socioeconomic status. So the failure here was that feedback loops and proxy discrimination in government decision pipelines was occurring. Stakes included family separation and permanent records being affected. The stakes here are incredibly high, life changing, right? 100% stake, right? That's obvious. The scale is hard to really measure at the same level as the others that we've talked about so far. And the irreversibility here, while you may be able to ultimately try to reverse some of this, the damage is not. And the opacity or the black box thinking of this, right? It's not exactly understandable, and it causes so many different issues. Case 4, welfare fraud algorithms at national scale. So the Dutch child care benefit scandal. Tens of thousands of parents wrongfully accused of fraud. Discriminatory dynamics documented. Erroneous financial and family destruction. The failure mode here is that industrialized administrative violence, fraud detection turned for enforcement, not the truth. The stakes incredibly high, the scale incredibly high, and the irreversibility still a huge impact on the same measure of separating families. And of course, the opacity still really something that becomes reeling and hard to comprehend. But it leaves us understanding that this is another very poignant example of why you cannot expect the AI models to work autonomously and be in charge of very dangerous tools yet. Okay. Um, okay. So, case five, healthcare algorithms denying care. This should be a pretty obvious one because we've as Americans, I think many of us have seen and heard about this. A widely used risk prediction algorithm exhibited significant racial bias, steering care resources away from black patients who were equally or more ill because cost was used as a proxy for health need. Healthcare is a sensitive topic from the very get-go. It's been a widely misconstrued piece of information that black and brown patients are stronger than other patients or feel less pain. That is a fallacy in healthcare, but it is carried over into real life and through AI models and automation and robotics and the rest of that because the base data under it is biased. It is faulty. And so the result of that is the AI takes those prejudices and biases and multiplies, stacks upon them, and creates more problems for the user base than it solves. Right. So healthcare algorithms is a special place as well. AI chatbots and teen self harm. A wrongful death suit alleges a 14-year-old was a 14-year-old was encouraged towards SA. I'm sorry, not SA, but deleting themselves by an AI chatbot. Additional litigation describes harmful messages to minors. Um, there's a case about what's happened at Facebook in general, where Facebook or Meta, I'm sorry, I'm an old guy, so it's still Facebook to me. Um, Meta has some accusations around their um, situations of how they discussed internally how the AI bots would be able to engage with youthful users. Um, I totally disagree with the way the company handled it as part of their AI governance, their data governance. Those things should have been flagged. And honestly, some of the people and the things they said to those emails should have been enough for them to be fired, right? But in general, the moral system that companies need to use to make these decisions should be a lot easier to understand. And they should try to aim to use such a system as I've outlined here from the other cases where stakes, scale, opacity, and the level of irreversibility can be measured and how harmful these systems are, right? So case seven, AI discrimination during real violence. During cartel violence in Mexico recently, widespread AI manipulated posts intensified fear and confusion during fast moving crises. Um, if you've not been paying attention, if you've not heard, there's quite a few things going on in Mexico with a lot of violence between gangs and different situations there. Those people who are experiencing these things there um, have also been suffering from AI manipulated data, right? So we are in the age where data is being used against you to make situations worse that are real time, but also to manipulate the everyday status of voters and how they feel about things, and how our older cousins and friends and stuff are getting confused, and maybe younger people who can't tell if things are real, right? But AI is being used as creating the disinformation campaigns and making that more difficult for people to understand. So this is obviously another case. Lastly, here, case eight, voice cloning, extortion scams. This is probably my biggest fear in general as a parent. just currently, because scammers are using AI replication to mimic children during ransom calls, exploiting panic to extract money from terrified parents. So, if you haven't already had a conversation as a parent with your family for creating safe words, for talking about what happens if you get a suspicious phone call from what sounds like your daughter, your son, or your family member, you should start having those conversations. But in general, scams are becoming more intense with voice cloning, where you're able to really, really imitate an entire person and fool a recipient into believing that they're actually helping that person, right? So give me some gift cards, send me some money, or make a transaction on my behalf. None of those things are actually happening in real time, or happening. You're actually being scammed. You might be having a real time transaction occurring against your money or your accounts, and um, yeah, a lot of this has turned out very, very poorly, and our government, our regulatory bodies are just not equipped to handle this right now. So what I have dubbed as the refinery problem in an upcoming book that I'm writing as well, that I hope you stick around and learn more about as you become a subscriber. So please like and share this video. If you haven't already, join the Substack, become a member, a paid member. We have more content that drops for particular paid members. Um, and then we also drop more content in general through Substack. So you have some more, I think, honest truths about everything, right? So, excuse me. So the data is the new oil is going to be the name of the book, but everyone is talking about how the best example of the value of the underlying data is that it is truly like crude oil for the future, right? Crude oil isn't dangerous because it exists. It's dangerous because you push it through infrastructure that wasn't built to handle it safely. I gave you the 8 cases, the pipeline explosions, talk about the cases there, refinery fires that you kind of attribute it to. The root cause is that the system lacks the proper pressure valves and governance, right? So the ask here is unrestricted flow, no shut off valve from the government. The Pentagon is saying it's calling um, the engineer who insists on shut off valves a supply chain risk. Like, think about that. I mean, as the U.S. government, the Pentagon in general, they should be the one protecting everyone. And U.S. businesses who are not normally known for being so caring is leading the charge right now. Like, that's pretty interesting, So um, the industry agrees, right? Again, we talked about there's kind of a consensus across the aisle here. In the last 48 hours alone, something unprecedented has occurred. Over 300 Google employees have signed an open letter standing with Anthropic. 60 plus OpenAI employees have co-signed a letter with Sam Altman, the rivals of Anthropic. There's bipartisan lawmakers raising formal concerns. Retired Air Force General Shanahan called it a lose lose. And then there are Amazon and Microsoft workers joining separate coalitions and writing letters opposing the pressure campaign. This is where competitors have stepped in, and when your competitors are starting to defend you, that's not politics. That's a professional consensus. I mean, that's almost like all doctors coming out and saying you shouldn't, you shouldn't smoke, right? Um, there's not. It's not 5 out of 10 doctors say you shouldn't smoke. I mean, every doctor has now agreed as a consensus that smoking leads to having negative health consequences. So, um, yeah, right. Okay, so from here, the tale that I've kind of like summarized here is the Pentagon says it would never use the AI for mass surveillance or autonomous weapons. Existing laws prevent it, is what they have said. Um, my challenge is then put it in writing. Okay. Anthropic has asked for that. They say if you're never going to do it, the contractual restriction of saying that costs absolutely nothing. And then certainly putting names on pin for that, right? The refusal for this is a restriction on something that they would claim to never do is the answer, right? It's just, I mean, it's outrageous. It's like a prenup conversation in general. Like, if you don't see a problem, then just stop doing it, is what I would say. And so what happens from here? I mean, we've seen a couple of issues already. XAI has already signed on, said that they'll back this. OpenAI and Google are willing to negotiate for classified access, moving faster under this particular situation. And many of the situations have turned into the companies being isolated, Anthropic's isolated, and others are hoping to fall in line. But it appears that we're going to see most of the companies go after trying to capture the business, right? So yeah, the bottom line here is that I've provided you 8 documented cases so far. At least 100,000 people have been harmed. I built a danger index that I think certainly matters and can be used in context. The question isn't whether Anthropic should bend. The question is what happens to all of us when the next pipeline explosion isn't a facial recognition arrest or a welfare algorithm, but a weapon system or a surveillance dragnet operating on American soil with no shutoff valve and no one left willing to say stop. I appreciate you listening. Like and subscribe. Make sure you tap in with the Substack. And if you're not already following TikTok, check that out.